February 21st, 2016, my flight to Pakistan, but I was not allowed to go. I arrived at Heathrow Airport by National Express and was due to fly at 5 p.m. that Sunday. When I tried to book in at the flight terminal at 2 o'clock, I was not permitted to do so because I had no visa. When I explained the situation to the superintendent, I was told if I got an email from the High Commissioner at the Pakistani embassy confirming it was clear for me to travel, then he'd let me travel on the scheduled trip. In my disappointment, I contacted my host, Mr. Anil Anwar in Pakistan, explaining the situation and asked him to send confirmation of my invitation to visit Pakistan by email to the High Commissioner in London and a copy to the station master and me. The difficulty was it was Sunday and most official offices were closed. I received a copy of my invitation via email on my iPhone and was able to send it to Suella Fernandez, MP for Fareham, asking her to endorse our request for me to visit Pakistan. At 4 p.m, the station manager informed me he hadn't received any email from the High Commissioner, and so I was not able to travel, but I could travel the next day at 5 o'clock if I got my visa. The Pakistani embassy was in London. Thankfully, I was able to travel by express train to London that day, on an express train to Paddington, and then take a taxi to my friend in Mayfair, where I stayed the night with Simon MacDonald. On Monday morning, I travelled by taxi to the Pakistani embassy, only to be informed that I would have to travel to Stratford to make an application for the visa. So I took a taxi to the visa office in Stratford, seeking to get the visa that day. En route to the office, the taxi driver asked me about my travelling, and I was able to tell him about my mission and brief story of conversion from crime to Christ and the work that we did in the Philippines. He was very interested and asked me where could he get a copy of my book, Converted on LSD Trip, so I gave him my card and details. On arrival at the visa office, I was informed I needed 2 photographs for the application and was then directed to a post office a mile away in order to get my photographs taken. On my return, I was told that I needed the invitation that I had on my iPhone printed on an A4 sheet of paper and also my last month's bank statement. I only had 1 hour to do this before the office closed, so I went across the road to the Holiday Inn hotel and asked if they could print out my emails on A4 sheets of paper. I managed to do this if I could print out my email invitation and bank statement on A4 sheets. I was able to do this by 1:27, just 3 minutes before the visa office closed. I rushed back to the office just before it closed. To my disappointment, they were unable to process an emergency visa application, and I was directed to the High Commissioner back at the Pakistani embassy. He was the only one able to do it. It was 1:45 p.m, so I took a taxi, recommended by the visa office, back to the embassy. En route, the taxi driver asked me about my travelling, and I explained I was seeking to travel to Pakistan. He then asked me to explain certain things to him about Christianity, who Jesus was, and so on. He then showed me his collection of YouTube videos of a Muslim preacher, Dr. Zakir Naik, and I listened to what he had to say. He was very articulate and quoted a lot from the Bible, and I began to realise I needed to address some of those issues at the conference in Pakistan when I travelled. I thought I was doing very well, and all was not lost, but I was soon told my visa would take 5 days to process. During my wait at the Pakistan embassy, several Muslims had a prayer session on the floor in front of me, including the man dealing with my application, and this reminded me of the time that I had with my Muslim students that I taught at Luton College of Higher Education, who prayed with me in a similar manner at Luton College all those years ago, and that I mentioned in my book, Converted on LSD Trip, in chapter 16, titled, Muslims Want to Convert Me. I felt so disappointed. So I sent word to Anil, my host, immediately, telling of the disappointment, and returned to Heathrow Airline ticket office to reschedule my flight at a later date. And then I returned to Fareham on the National Express, feeling absolutely worn out. Conclusion, 23rd of February 2016. Remembering Romans 8, verse 28, And we know that all things work together for good, to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. These are the lessons I learned. 1. I was reminded that in all our arrangements we should say, as instructed by James 4:15, for this ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or do that. And 2, it was an omission on my part for not checking my visa qualifications. 3, I was able to forward a letter of invitation to Suella Fernandez MP that confirmed my invitation and my visit to the Pakistan Peace Conference, which was a good thing for the future. 4, I was alerted to the fact that my passport needed to be renewed in June 2016, so I've now applied for a 10-year renewal today. 5, I was able to see with more clarity the nature and subject matter that I needed to speak about with respect to Muslims on my visit to Pakistan. Result: the conference has been postponed until my visa is in order, and another church from Pakistan has asked me to visit them also on my next trip towards the end of March, so I will be asking this time for a 30-day visa.